I called my family 8 times from my hospital bed. 8 times while my lung was collapsing. 8 times while doctors said I might need emergency surgery. They didn't answer because my sister was overwhelmed about her engagement party decorations. You want to know what happens when a family decides centerpieces matter more than their daughter's life, Captain Mitchell? When they choose floral arrangements over emergency consent forms? Everyone thinks this story is about bad priorities, but that's not where this fire started. The real fire started years ago, when I realized I was always the backup plan, the afterthought, the one who could wait. If you've ever been invisible to the people who should love you most, you'll understand this story. Subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. My name is Meredith Langford. People call me Mare. I'm 27 years old, and the night everything shattered began with the sharp, metallic smell of the ICU and the slow, merciless beep of the heart monitor beside me. 3 days earlier, I'd been in a car accident. Someone ran a red light, hit me from the side, spun my car across 2 lanes. At the emergency room, they checked me over. Some bruising, possible whiplash. They said I was lucky. Go home and rest. Come back if anything feels wrong. So I did. But on Saturday evening, something felt very wrong. I couldn't breathe right. Sharp pain in my side every time I inhaled. Dizziness that wouldn't stop. I drove myself back to the hospital. Riverside Memorial, same place as before. This time, they didn't send me home. Collapsed lung, internal bleeding, possible spleen rupture. They admitted me to the ICU immediately. I lay there, bruised, stitched, and fighting waves of dizziness as I lifted my phone with shaking fingers. It was 6 o'clock on a Saturday evening. My family would be together. They always were on Saturdays. I hit call. My mom answered on the 4th ring. In the background, I heard chaos. Laughter, squeals, clinking glasses, music. Then my sister Cassidy's dramatic nasal cry. Tell her to stop calling. I'm literally crying over my engagement decor. Everything's ruined because she keeps interrupting. Mom sighed, annoyed. Mir, sweetie, this is not a good time. We're decorating. Your sister is overwhelmed. Mom, I said. My voice was weak, shaky. They think there's internal bleeding. They need consent for scans. I don't know if I should sign alone. Silence, for half a second. Then she lowered her voice, like I was the inconvenience. Mir, your sister is crying. Do you hear me? Crying. We cannot deal with this right now. And she hung up. Just like that. The kind of hang-up that doesn't disconnect a call. It disconnects a relationship. The nurse beside me tried to hide the pity in her eyes. Her name tag read Mahoney. Sweetheart, she said softly, do you have anyone else, anyone who actually shows up? My throat tightened. I blinked back tears. I'll try my dad. I called him. He answered faster than Mom had. Mir, we're in the middle of something. Can this wait? Dad, I'm in the ICU. I might need emergency surgery. We said we'd come later, he replied. His tone was dismissive, final. You always exaggerate. Just sign whatever they need and we'll talk tomorrow. In the background, Cassidy was screaming. The floral arch collapsed. This is a disaster. Dad, you promised you'd help me fix it. Mir, I have to go, Dad said, and he hung up too. I stared at my phone, at the screen that showed the call had ended. Nurse Mahoney put her hand on my shoulder. Just briefly, a moment of human kindness in a cold, sterile room. Try one more person, she said. Someone you trust. I scrolled through my contacts. Past my parents, past Cassidy, past cousins and aunts and uncles who would all ask why I wasn't calling my parents. Then I saw his name. Lucas Ward, my attorney. the man handling my accident case. I'd met with him twice. Professional, kind, focused. He'd given me his direct number and said, "Call me if anything changes with your condition." I didn't think he meant like this, but I had no one else. I hit call. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. He answered on the first ring. "Meredith, what happened?" His voice was alert, immediate, like he'd been waiting. "I'm at Riverside Memorial," I said, my voice cracked. "ICU. They think I have internal bleeding. They need consent for scans and maybe surgery. I called my family, but they're busy. I don't know what to do." "I'm coming," Lucas said. No hesitation, no questions. "Don't sign anything until I get there. I'll be there in 20 minutes. "You don't have to." "Meredith, I'm already in my car." And he hung up. But this time, the disconnect felt different. Not like abandonment, like action. Nurse Mahoney smiled. "That's a good one. Hold on to him." I closed my eyes, tried to breathe through the pain, tried to understand why my attorney was rushing to my bedside while my family was choosing centerpiece colors. 20 minutes later, Lucas walked through the ICU doors. He wore jeans and a sweater, like he'd been home, relaxing, but he'd dropped everything and come anyway. He carried a folder in one hand, determination in his eyes. His presence steadied the room in a way my own family never had. "Meredith," he said, coming straight to my bedside, "I'm here. You're not alone." I felt tears slide down my cheeks. "Thank you." He set the folder on the tray table, pulled a chair close. "Tell me what the doctors said," I explained. "The collapsed lung, the internal bleeding, the possible spleen rupture, the scans they needed to run, the potential emergency surgery." Lucas listened, really listened, asked questions, took notes. When Dr. Harrison came in to check on me, Lucas stood and introduced himself. "I'm Meredith's attorney, Lucas Ward. I'm here to help her understand her options and provide support." Dr. Harrison nodded. "Good. She shouldn't be making these decisions alone." "She's not alone," Lucas said firmly. And right then, as if the universe wanted a front row seat to irony, my family arrived. Not for me, because the hospital had a Starbucks. I heard them before I saw them. Loud voices, laughter, the click of my mom's heels. They walked into my room carrying coffee cups, smiling, chatting. Then they froze when they saw Lucas standing beside my bed. Mom's smile faltered. "Oh, we didn't know you'd called anyone." Her eyes flicked to me, to my pale skin, the dried blood at my hairline, the IV taped to my arm. Then flicked away just as fast, like looking at me was uncomfortable. Cassidy crossed her arms. Her engagement bracelet jingled. "Seriously, Mare? You called a lawyer? For what, attention?" Lucas's jaw tightened. He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. "She called me because she was alone, because the doctor needed immediate consent for internal imaging, because her lung collapsed and she needed someone who would actually show up." Dad grunted, annoyed. "We said we'd come later. She always exaggerates." I let out a shaky breath. "I told you I might need emergency surgery." Cassidy rolled her eyes so hard her glitter eyeshadow cracked. "And I told you I'm stressed. My floral arch collapsed, okay? Do you know how traumatic that is?" The heart monitor beeped steadily, patient, judging. Dr. Harrison stepped back into the room. He looked at my family, then at me, then at Lucas. "Miss Langford," he said, "your scans show internal bleeding and a possible spleen rupture. We're monitoring closely, but we may need to do an exploratory procedure soon, within the hour." Mom gasped, loud enough to sound caring. Oh my God, Mare, why didn't you tell us? I stared at her. I did. Lucas set a document on the tray table. His movements were calm, controlled. Mr. and Mrs. Langford, he said, there's a clause in Meredith's accident settlement that you may have forgotten about. Dad's head snapped up. What clause? Lucas remained calm, professional. The clause stating that should her condition worsen due to delayed consent or abandonment by next of kin, liability shifts to the individuals responsible for refusing urgent assistance. Cassidy scoffed. What does that even mean? Lucas looked at her directly. It means if she died waiting for you, you'd be financially responsible. Silence. Thick. Stifling. The beeping of the heart monitor suddenly felt deafening. My family froze. Not out of guilt, out of fear. And in that moment, I understood exactly how deep their priorities ran. Mom's hand flew to her chest, not out of love, out of panic. Wait, hold on. That can't be real. You're exaggerating, right? Lucas didn't flinch. Hospital call logs, recorded communication attempts, timestamps, all admissible. And Meredith's attempts to reach you, he glanced at me gently, were documented. Dad's voice dropped to a hiss. Mare, why would you get a lawyer involved? Families handle things privately. I stared at him. My voice was barely above a whisper. I called because I thought I was dying, Dad. And you were busy picking centerpiece colors. Cassidy scoffed. Oh my God, you're being dramatic again. You always make everything about you. Nurse Mahoney, standing near the monitors, shot Cassidy a glare sharp enough to cut glass. She came in with a collapsing lung and internal bleeding. Nurse Mahoney said coldly, This is not drama. This is survival. Cassidy opened her mouth, but Dr. Harrison stepped forward with the weight of authority. We need to prep the operating room, he said. I don't want another delay. As he left, Lucas moved closer to my bedside. His calm steadiness anchored me. Meredith, if you want me to stay through the procedure, I will. I exhaled, shaky, grateful. Please don't leave. Dad let out a frustrated breath, started pacing the small room. This is ridiculous. It was one missed call. I looked up at him. It was 8 calls, 2 texts, and Nurse Mahoney left a voicemail too. Mom shot back defensively. We were under pressure. Cassidy's Decor crisis. Engagement party, Cassidy corrected with a sniff. It's important. Lucas folded his arms. You should know something else. The hospital is filing a report due to delayed response from next of kin. They don't take abandonment lightly. Dad stopped pacing. Mom went pale. Cassidy finally shut up. And for the first time that night, they realized this wasn't about Decor. This was about consequences. The air grew heavy, thick enough that even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to hold its breath. I shifted slightly. A sting shot through my side, reminding me how close everything had come. Dad stepped forward, lowering his voice like he was negotiating a business deal, not talking to his injured daughter. Mir, listen. Whatever the hospital thinks they heard, we can fix this. No need to make things ugly. I let out a humorless laugh. The pain made it hurt. Ugly? Dad, I was lying here scared out of my mind, and you were choosing napkin colors. Cassidy bristled. Wow, so now my engagement is the villain? I swear you love ruining every important moment for me. Lucas turned to her, his expression measured, controlled. Her life is an important moment. Cassidy opened her mouth, closed it. Mom tried smoothing things over. that patronizing tone she used whenever emotions were inconvenient. "We're here now, sweetheart. Let's just focus on moving forward." But something inside me had snapped, not in anger, in clarity. "You weren't here," I said softly. "You showed up for Starbucks, not me." Silence, the kind you can feel. Nurse Mahoney returned with a clipboard. "Miss Langford, the OR is ready. Do you have someone to accompany you to pre-op?" Cassidy and Mom looked away, in unison, like synchronized guilt. Dad didn't move. Only Lucas stepped forward. "I'm here," he said. "I'll go with her." Nurse Mahoney nodded, began lowering the bed rails. As she started wheeling me toward the door, my family followed, half-heartedly, like they weren't sure if this counted as a real crisis or just another mere problem. Cassidy muttered under her breath, "If this delays my rehearsal dinner, I swear." I heard her. Lucas heard her. Nurse Mahoney definitely heard her. But no one said a word. Because deep down, even my family knew their priorities were being exposed under the brightest, coldest hospital lights imaginable. They wheeled me down the hallway, the wheels squeaking every few seconds, a tiny, imperfect sound that somehow felt truer than anything my family had said all night. The corridor lights blurred above me, white, unforgiving, each one passing like a countdown. I wasn't sure what I was counting toward. Surgery? Survival? The end of something I couldn't name yet? Lucas walked beside the gurney, matching Nurse Mahoney's pace, steady, unshaken. Behind us, my family followed in a messy cluster, whispering, sighing, adjusting their clothes like they were heading into a photo shoot instead of a surgical wing. Mom finally spoke. "Mir, honey, once this is over, we'll talk. As a family, okay?" I looked at her. Her mascara was flawless, her tone rehearsed, her eyes somewhere else entirely. "We talked tonight," I said quietly. "You just didn't like what you heard." Cassidy huffed dramatically. "Seriously, can you stop being so sensitive? Everyone is stressed. My decorator canceled last minute." Lucas turned sharply. Her lung collapsed. Cassidy blinked. "Okay, but do you have any idea how hard it is to book florals in peak season?" Nurse Mahoney muttered something under her breath that sounded like unbelievable. Dad cleared his throat, stepped closer like he wanted to reclaim control. "Listen, Mir. After the procedure, let's sit down and figure out how to handle this. The hospital report, the liability thing." "It's not a situation," I said. "It's my life." Lucas placed a hand gently on the railing of my bed, voice calm but edged with steel. "And her life isn't something you can spin into convenience." We reached the pre-op doors. Only one person was allowed through. Mom stepped forward, Dad too. Cassidy even tried, but Nurse Mahoney blocked them with a firm hand. "Immediate emotional support only," she said, meaning someone who was actually present when she needed them. All three froze. Lucas looked at me. "I'm with you." And when the doors opened, it wasn't my family who followed me into the cold, bright unknown. It was the only person who truly showed up. The pre-op room was colder than the hallway, the kind of cold that seeped past skin and straight into your ribs. Machines hummed softly. Curtains swayed with the ventilation. Somewhere nearby, someone whispered a prayer. Lucas stood beside my bed as Nurse Mahoney prepped the IV line. His presence felt calm, quiet, like a lighthouse in a storm I hadn't asked for. "You're going to be okay," he said gently. "I'm staying right here until they take you in." I nodded, blinking against the harsh overhead lights. "Thank you for coming when they didn't." He exhaled slowly. "You shouldn't have had to ask at all." Through the cracked door, I caught a glimpse of my family, pacing outside the restricted line. Cassidy was complaining loudly to a staff member about unfair rules. Mom was reapplying lip gloss in a compact mirror. Dad was on his phone, probably telling someone how dramatic tonight had been. It stung, but it didn't surprise me anymore. Dr. Peters entered, the surgeon, crisp scrubs, serious expression. Miss Langford, the bleeding is localized but risky. We need to operate soon, within the next 15 minutes. My pulse quickened. Lucas noticed immediately, rested a steady hand on the side rail, never touching my skin, always respectful, always present. Meredith, he said softly, you are not alone. I'll be here when you wake up. Nurse Mahoney positioned a consent form in front of me. My hand trembled as I signed, not from fear of surgery, but from everything that had led me here. As they began rolling me toward the operating room, I heard raised voices outside. Dad. Where's our daughter? Let us in! Hospital staff. Where were you during her critical hour? Cassidy. Do you people know who I am? My engagement party is in 2 days. Then Mom's voice, sharp, desperate. Mare, sweetie, tell them you want us. The OR doors swung open. I didn't look back, because for the first time in my life, their voices didn't pull me. They pushed me forward. The operating room doors closed behind me, muffling the chaos of my family's voices until they became nothing more than distant, meaningless echoes. The anesthesiologist leaned over me, adjusting the mask with practiced calm. Dr. Kim. Her name tag said Dr. Kim. You'll feel sleepy in a few seconds, Miss Langford, she said gently. I nodded, heart thudding in my ears. Not from fear of the surgery, but from everything that waited outside those doors. Everything I could no longer unsee. Just before the medication swept over me, I heard Lucas's voice, low, steady, from the hallway beyond the glass. I'll be right here when she wakes up. Darkness took me gently. I don't know how long I was under. Time moved differently in the operating room, stretched thin, then compressed into nothing. But at 9:45 p.m., something went wrong. Not with the surgery, with the hospital. The fire alarm went off, loud, piercing, echoing through every corridor of Riverside Memorial. I was still unconscious, still under anesthesia, still open on the table. Dr. Peters looked up sharply. What's happening? A nurse at the door spoke into a radio. Listened. Her face went pale. Fire in the surgical wing. Equipment room. It's spreading fast. We need to evacuate. Dr. Peters didn't hesitate. We're mid-procedure. I need 5 minutes to close. Doctor, we don't have 5 minutes. The smoke is already in the ventilation system. Dr. Peters's jaw tightened. Then we move her, now. Get the backup OR ready on the 3rd floor. Kim, keep her stable. Dr. Kim adjusted my anesthesia levels. She's stable, but moving her like this is risky. Staying here is riskier, Dr. Peters said. The surgical team moved fast, organized chaos. They covered my incision with sterile drapes, disconnected monitors, transferred me to a transport gurney while keeping IV lines and anesthesia running. Nurse Mahoney burst through the doors. I'll help navigate. 3rd floor backup suite is clear. Lucas was right behind her. His face was tight with worry. What's happening? Is she okay? We're evacuating, Dr. Peters said. Stay close, but stay out of the way. They wheeled me into the hallway. Smoke was already visible. Thin gray wisps curling along the ceiling. The smell of burning plastic and electrical wiring filled the air. Other ORs were evacuating too. Patients being moved, equipment rolling, staff shouting directions. Lucas stayed beside my gurney, one hand on the rail, like he was anchoring me to consciousness even though I couldn't feel it. They moved fast, down one corridor, around a corner, toward the stairwell access that would take us to the third floor. Behind them, firefighters were already arriving, pulling hoses, shouting commands. One of them ran toward the surgical wing, helmet on, gear heavy. He saw the medical team moving patients and changed direction, ran toward them. "How many patients still in the surgical wing?" he called out. "All clear," Nurse Mahoney shouted back. "Last one here." The firefighter looked at me, at the gurney, at the surgical drapes and the monitors still beeping. "You're in the middle of surgery?" "Yes," Dr. Peters said. "We need to get to the backup OR, third floor." The firefighter nodded. "I'm Captain Mitchell. My crew will handle the fire. You get her safe." He looked at Lucas. "Sir, are you family?" "I'm her attorney," Lucas said, "and the only one who showed up when she called." Something passed across Captain Mitchell's face. Understanding. Maybe recognition. "Stay with her," Captain Mitchell said. Then he turned and ran back toward the fire. They got me to the third floor. The backup operating room was smaller, older, but functional. Dr. Peters didn't waste time. "Let's finish this." They worked fast, closed the incision, stopped the bleeding, stabilized everything that needed stabilizing. Lucas waited outside, pacing, never leaving. By the time they were done, it was almost midnight. Downstairs in the waiting area, my family had been trapped. Not physically, but practically. The fire had been contained to the surgical wing, but smoke had spread. Elevators were shut down. Stairwells were being used for evacuation routes. My family couldn't get to me, couldn't reach the third floor, couldn't push their way through. And Captain Mitchell made sure they understood why. He found them in the main lobby, sitting with their Starbucks cups. Patricia was crying. Robert was pacing. Cassidy was on her phone. "Excuse me," Captain Mitchell said. "Are you the Langford family?" Patricia looked up, mascara streaked. "Yes, that's our daughter up there, Meredith. Is she okay?" Captain Mitchell looked at them, really looked, took in the coffee cups, the dry eyes under the mascara, the phone in Cassidy's hand showing a Pinterest board of flower arrangements. "Your daughter is in surgery," he said. "They had to evacuate her mid-procedure because of the fire. Move her to a backup OR. She's stable, but it was touch and go for a while." Patricia gasped. "Oh my God, can we see her?" "Where were you when she called you 8 times tonight?" Captain Mitchell asked. Robert frowned. "Excuse me?" "Hospital security briefed us," Captain Mitchell said. His voice was calm, even, but hard as steel underneath. "This is a documented abandonment case. Your daughter called you 8 times, sent 2 texts, a nurse left a voicemail. You didn't respond because you were decorating for a party." Cassidy stood up. "That's not fair. We didn't know it was that serious." "She told you," Captain Mitchell said. 8 times. Patricia's face crumpled. "We didn't know." "You didn't want to know," Captain Mitchell said. "There's a difference." He looked at all 3 of them. "Your daughter almost died twice tonight. Once from her injuries. Once because you couldn't be bothered to answer." Robert's face went red. "Now wait just a minute." "No," Captain Mitchell said. "You wait. You wait until the doctors say she's stable. You wait until someone who actually cares about her says you can see her. You wait until you understand that showing up after the danger is over doesn't count as being there." He turned and walked away, left them sitting in the lobby, surrounded by their coffee cups and their excuses. For the first time that night, they had nothing to say. I woke hours later. The rhythmic hiss of oxygen, the soft beep of monitors. My vision wavered, shapes blending in and out. Then one figure sharpened. Lucas, slumped in a stiff hospital chair. Suit jacket off, tie loosened, hair slightly mussed. An unintentional imperfection my family would have criticized, but it made him feel more real than anyone else in my life. When he saw my eyes flutter open, relief washed over his face. "Mir," he said. His voice cracked, just a little, the first crack from him all night. "You made it." "You stayed?" I whispered. My throat was dry. "Of course I did." He reached for the water cup, helped me take a small sip through a straw. "Through the surgery, through the fire, through everything." "Fire?" "Electrical fire in the surgical wing," he explained. "They had to evacuate you mid-procedure, move you to a backup OR, but Dr. Peters got you through it. You're okay." Tears slid down my cheeks. "You stayed through all of that?" "I told you I would." Before I could respond, the door swung open. My family poured in like they were entering a stage. Mom rushed forward. "Sweetheart, we've been so worried." Dad crossed his arms. "The doctor said it went well. That's what matters." Cassidy sniffed dramatically. "You scared us, and you totally ruined my sleep. My party is tomorrow." Lucas rose slowly, posture firm, voice controlled. "Visiting hours allow only one person at a time. Hospital policy." Mom frowned. "We're her family." Lucas met her eyes calmly. "Family shows up. You didn't." Their faces stiffened, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to let that truth sit in the room like a spotlight they couldn't escape. The silence after Lucas's words was heavier than any monitor beep. My family stood frozen, their perfect outfits and perfect postures suddenly looking like costumes, thin fabric over hollow care. Dad recovered first, cleared his throat. "Mir, let's not escalate things. We're here now, that's what counts." I looked at him, really looked, and felt nothing. Not anger, not grief, just clarity. "Dad," I said softly, "you showed up when the danger was over, not when it mattered." Mom stepped forward, reached for my hand. I pulled it away. Her face flickered. "Sweetheart, we didn't know it was that serious." "I told you," I whispered. "I told all of you, 8 times." Cassidy scoffed, tossed her curled hair over her shoulder. "God, are you really going to hold one night over us? I had a breakdown. My decorator quit." "Your sister almost died," Lucas said. His voice was quiet, but it cut like a blade. Cassidy folded her arms. "And she's fine now." Nurse Mahoney entered, holding a clipboard, eyebrows raised high at the tension in the room. "Miss Langford," she said. "Just confirming. Your emergency contact is still Lucas Ward, correct?" All 3 of my family members turned sharply. Dad barked. "What? No! We're her family!" Nurse Mahoney didn't blink. "According to hospital records, you didn't respond to multiple emergency calls tonight. Mr. Ward did. So yes, he's listed as primary emergency contact." Mom's mouth fell open. Cassidy's face flushed an unattractive shade of blotchy red. I felt a slow, steady calm spread through me. "Yes," I said. My voice was stronger now, clearer. "Keep him as my emergency contact." Dad stepped closer, voice low with warning. "Mir, think about how this looks." "I am," I said, for the first time. Nurse Mahoney excused herself, left the door open just a crack. Lucas placed a supportive hand on the bed rail, not touching me, but grounding me. I inhaled deeply, the oxygen cool in my chest. I'm taking space from all of you, I said. Real space. You showed me exactly where I stand. Mom whispered, Mir, we're your family. I met her eyes, steady, unwavering. Family shows up. Their faces crumbled, quietly, beautifully, under the weight of their own choices. 2 weeks later, I was discharged from the hospital. Lucas helped me move into a new apartment, closer to work, smaller than my old place, but mine. My family kept calling, texting, leaving voicemails. Patricia, we need to talk about this. You're being unreasonable. Robert, you're tearing this family apart over one misunderstanding. Cassidy, you missed my engagement party. Everyone asked where you were. You embarrassed me. I didn't respond to any of them. I blocked their numbers temporarily, just to give myself space to breathe. Lucas checked in regularly, professional, but caring. How are you feeling? He'd ask. Better, I'd say, and I meant it. 1 month after the surgery, I went back to work. Part-time at first, building my strength back. My boss was understanding, my coworkers were supportive. Nobody asked about my family. Nobody needed to. 3 months later, I was fully healed. Physically, at least. Emotionally, I was still working through it. Therapy helped, journaling helped, distance helped most of all. My family still reached out occasionally, less desperately now, more carefully, testing the waters, seeing if I'd softened. I hadn't. One evening, 6 months after that night in the hospital, I met Lucas for coffee. Not as attorney and client, as friends. How are you really doing? He asked. I thought about it. Really thought. I'm good, I said. I'm building a life centered on people who actually show up, and it turns out that's a pretty good life. He smiled. You deserve that. Thank you, I said, for everything. For showing up when no one else would. You don't have to thank me for doing the right thing, he said. But I did, because I'd learned that not everyone does the right thing. Some people choose flower arrangements over family. Some people choose appearances over presence. Some people choose comfort over courage. And some people, rare people, just show up. Lucas was one of those people. And so was Captain Mitchell, the firefighter who'd evacuated me mid-surgery, who'd confronted my family in the lobby, who'd seen the truth and spoken it without hesitation. I never got to thank him properly, but I hope he knows his words mattered. They helped me see what I'd been too afraid to admit, that I deserved better than people who only showed up for the easy parts.
That was Meredith Langford. I'm Captain Dean Mitchell, Station 47. We got the call at 9:47 p.m. Electrical fire at Riverside Memorial Hospital. Surgical wing, equipment room. Old wiring couldn't handle the load. When we arrived, we were evacuating patients mid-procedure, moving operating rooms, controlled chaos with lives hanging in the balance. That's when I met a family trying to force their way to the surgical wing, desperate to reach their daughter. I asked where they'd been earlier, when she called them 8 times from her hospital bed, when she begged for help while her lung collapsed. They'd been decorating for an engagement party, choosing centerpieces while their daughter chose who to list as emergency contact. I've been doing this for 18 years. I've seen families torn apart by fire, by accidents, by tragedy, but I've never seen a family torn apart by priorities until that night. Meredith called the one person who answered, her attorney, not because he was family, because he acted like it. He stayed through the surgery, through the fire evacuation, through the recovery, through everything. He showed up. Her blood family showed up for coffee, for themselves, for everything except her. Sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones who hurt you worst, not with violence, with absence, with the message that you're not important enough to interrupt their plans. 8 calls, 2 texts, a nurse's voicemail, all ignored, because a floral arch collapsed, because centerpieces needed to be chosen, because someone else's moment was more important. That's not family. That's narcissism wrapped in the language of love. Real family shows up. In the ICU, in the pre-op room, in the aftermath, in the hard moments when showing up is inconvenient. Real family doesn't wait until the danger is over to care. If someone you love calls you 8 times from a hospital bed, answer. Answer the first time. Answer immediately, because one day they'll stop calling, and you'll have no one to blame but yourself. Meredith stopped calling, and her family lost her. Not to death. To a choice she made to value herself more than they ever did. That's not tragedy. That's survival. I'm Captain Dean Mitchell, Station 47. Stay safe out there.